I'm here today with Jane Daniels, is the program director at the Henry Luce Foundation. Jane, you received your bachelor's at Washington University in St. Louis,
That's right.
your master's degree in education and counseling student services from Purdue in 1970 through 73, and finally your Ph.D. from Purdue University in higher educational and organizational behavior from 79 to 88.
Yeah, you'll notice that's 9 years. I was a student forever, I think.
You're also a distinguished education alumna from Purdue University, as well as being recognized with a Distinguished Service Award from the Society of Women Engineers. Tell us a little bit about your career path from graduation until your current position here at the Henry Luce Foundation.
Sure, it's been a pretty amazing one. When I got my undergraduate degree at Washington U in St. Louis, it was in sociology, and immediately after that I moved to West Lafayette to be with my husband, who had worked there the year before. And I arrived in this college town and found out that a bachelor's degree in sociology was like nothing. It didn't prepare me for a darn thing. I had hoped to be a high school counselor, and when I got to Indiana I found out that the rules were a little different, and you had to teach for 3 years before you could be a counselor in the high school. And I had no interest or skill in teaching, so I thought, well, let's regroup, and I decided to just get a job that I would enjoy and begin taking classes part-time.
Mm-hmm.
So I did, and my first job, could hardly say it was a stepping stone on my career, but it was. I was a music librarian, and it was at the campus radio station, WBAA, and it was just great fun. It was enjoyable. I love music, and I could spend most of my day listening to music, timing it, writing out cards like you would for a library book. And the only important thing at the radio station that was different from the library is you had to know how long a piece was, because someone would come in and say, I need a 5-minute movement from a symphony. And we'd have to be able to find that for them.
Right.
So it was just an enjoyable position, and gave me the time and sort of the lack of stress to start my education. So I did begin a master's degree in counseling and student services while I was working there. And pretty quickly I made a change to be a half-time counselor in the Department of Geosciences at Purdue. And that allowed me to continue finishing my master's degree, but also to start getting some work experience, some relative experience. And what I noticed while I was in the Department of Geosciences is there weren't very many women majors in the department. And while this was curious to me, no one had asked me to pay any attention to that, so I didn't for a couple of years. But the longer I was there, the more I wondered why that was true, and these were careers that were interesting. If you had a degree in geology or meteorology or oceanography, and yet there weren't very many women. So the more I started thinking about that, my good friend Marie McKee was doing the same thing in the School of Engineering, but she had been hired to direct their Women in Engineering program. And so we talked a lot about that. Why didn't young women choose the sciences and engineering? And the more we spoke, the more we saw some common grounds between what I was experiencing in geosciences and what she was in engineering. A few years later, she decided to move into industry, and she said, you've got to apply for my job. It's just the greatest. The people I work with in engineering are fantastic. So I did. I had finished my master's by that time, but I had also become a mother to a young man named Kyle. And so I really wasn't interested in working full-time, which she did. So they hired me not in the director's position, but as an advisor in freshman engineering at that time. Now it's engineering education. And let me assist with the women's programs. And so that worked out great. They offered me the position, but I did not want to go full-time, and so I kind of put that on hold. As luck would have it, I hope it's luck, good fortune, whatever you'd say, a year or two later, the woman who had been hired did not like the job, and she left. And by this time, my son was 4, and in nursery schools. So they offered me the job again, and I said, yeah, this time I'll take it. And it was the most wonderful career beginning anyone could ever imagine in this area of women in science and engineering. I was the director at Purdue for over 20 years, and the whole field of interest in women in these non-traditional kinds of careers just grew by leaps and bounds. Purdue was the first school in the country to have a women in engineering program. It started in 1969. So there was really a strong tradition in this area, and I just loved working with it and continuing that tradition and starting some new things. So the program kept expanding and expanding. We had more staff. I was joined by Janine Recklitis as an assistant director and Emmy Wadsworth as an assistant director, both Purdue alums as well. And we created just a really wonderful program for women in the sciences and engineering. So I did that a long time. Then I guess I'll take a little sidestep. While I was in the position, the department chair in engineering and the dean were very good about career development of staff and faculty. And so as I got a little bit tired, a little bit bored with some of the things that we had done year after year after year, I had an opportunity to go to the National Science Foundation in Washington, D.C. as a loaned scientist. And I was there for a year and a half, and that really just added to my own interest in the subject, as well as certainly my experiences and my skills that I developed there about reviewing proposals, writing RFPs for grants, that kind of thing. You can tell where I'm going. All that experience, I did return to Purdue, but then years later, when the Luce Foundation came to me about this job that I'm in now, I just was really looking forward to that kind of a change in my career, because I had enjoyed the work at NSF, loved the work at Purdue, but it was time for something new. So 8 years ago, I came to New York City, very similar to my life in West Lafayette. Not at all. It was a real change, but it's been a wonderful move. The job here is similar to what I did at NSF.
Mm-hmm.
I write guidelines for proposals. We have a committee that chooses the actual grant recipients, but I work with them to give them all the materials they need to make a good decision, that type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully this is nearing the end of my career. I actually was able to retire from Purdue when I came out here, because I had been there from my job at WBAA. I had actually been at Purdue for 31 years when I left. So I was old enough and had enough experience to retire, and I was grateful for that.
Great. Where are you from, and how did you get to Purdue?
I lived in St. Louis. Was born in St. Louis, and that's where I did my undergraduate degree. And then, as I mentioned at the very beginning, the man I married had been working at Purdue, and so I moved there, and that started my Purdue tradition. And to be an alum twice, as well as a long-term employee, has just been the best of everything, really. I truly am one of those people who bleed black and gold, and I feel so much gratitude for the people and the experience I had at Purdue.